going today is around a term that's sort of rebranded of a culture of belonging. So what companies are trying to do, mine included, is try to create an environment where everyone feels like they belong. And hopefully, even though that you're recruiting diversity and you're having people participate, people will stay, because that has been the dilemma, stay, retention, because they feel like this is a place that they want to be. Some of us, myself included, we work in public, in companies that are doing professional services. Mm-hmm. So we're behind the scenes. We don't have a consumer per se. Why should any of us care? Because we don't have consumers that we're directly influencing.
On professional services, you're interacting with people of all walks of life, and you have to be able to build credibility and trust very quickly and deliver. And in order to do that, it's important to have different people and diverse perspectives in the room to come up with the most creative solution. So I think that's part of it.
It feels like this topic has not moved much in 30 or more years for some of us that have been around that long. So why? You know, is it, I mean, we've had heads of diversity and inclusion. Is that the wrong move? Anyone have advice or thoughts on, you know, why are we still having this same conversation? And is this conversation changing?
I think it has changed and gotten better in some ways. I think companies are more focused on their cultures and building, and to your point, building actually a culture that is inclusive for anyone. It's not built around one initiative or another, or we need more women or we need that, but that it's built around really an authentic belief on how you're going to move your business forward and what kind of culture is going to support that and get you to that place. I think we have limited resources, less people, less employees. Not you don't, you're growing, but you know that. I think it has to come from the leadership commitment to building a really strong, solid business. And I think those ones that survive are the ones that have strong cultures where people want to stay, they feel like they belong, and they want to be part of something. They're moving together towards something.
So just your companies now getting it? Is it like in the past it was sort of tallied as it's the right thing to do, it's a good thing to do? Have companies learned that it makes business sense?
I mean, I think there's no generalization that you can put out there, but I think more companies are starting to get it. I also don't think it's a conversation that is ever done. I think it's a reflection on the world we live in, and is one that we need to continue to keep having until all the lines are blurred. So I would say that you know, there are now more businesses and more companies paying attention for the right reasons, but there are still plenty that need to catch up. So the dialogue needs to continue. I do feel like there's been evolution and growth and movement in the past. I mean, I would say in the past 10 years.
Eric, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, to go into. Yeah, I think we're also in an instant gratification kind of world, and I think that's also translating into how we do business. I think for a long time people were in companies for years, and you got to know people, you built up trust, you built up relationships, and for better or for worse, maybe you all looked the same to begin with, so it was easier. But I think that now, as people are going in and out of companies really quickly and companies are struggling to keep up with that churn, there's this sort of missing step of how do you start to build real, authentic, trusting relationships with people.
What advice do you have for a company that's starting out on this journey? How do you get it right?
It's important to align with leadership on the why behind diversity and inclusion, like why are we doing this and what are we trying to achieve? I think that's the most critical piece of it that you can start to do right away. And that's just really a discussion and an open discussion.
So it sounds like we're kind of assuming that we're working in organizations where we're in this together and we're going to make change together. But, you know, the reality is that we also have leaders, be they CEOs, CFOs, or simply leaders of capabilities or departments, who are not on board or who don't see the value or who are slow to coming to that party. How would you advise someone if you're dealing with a leader who is not ready?
How do you get someone to listen, take action?
It would be so great in a perfect world if it was like The Voice, right? That show where
Yes.
you don't
Yeah,
see
right.
anyone and
Right.
you talk to people and you interview them and you absolutely hire them because they're the best. They meet the needs of that actual job and they have the best skill set to achieve what you're trying to do in the organization and as a business. That would be the utopia, right? Because then you would get, so we try to look at it through those lenses and not through what you're seeing or the biases you may bring from the way you were brought up. The other thing is we create our principles of culture, and that is a really important thing that everyone knows about and buys into when they're coming into the organization, and there's zero tolerance for not living by those culture and those pieces of that.
So, what advice might you have for someone that's in a talent or HR or recruiting role who's experiencing this challenge? May not be a senior on the totem pole, but is trying to get people hiring managers who say, I just hired the best person for the job. Sorry, that person that was older or of color or woman just didn't show up. I mean, what advice do you give?
Sometimes HR is not put in the position or does not put themselves in the position to speak the same language as their clients, right? The hiring managers, other members of the business. And so it's really hard to ask tough questions if you're not really on the same footing. And so I think that part of it is learning, like, why aren't you on board? What's getting in the way of us having this conversation? Like, what does best mean to you? Because this is what best means to the company, and how can we help get you there? And if you're still not getting there, then I agree with Jesse and with Agnes that you have to have a really serious conversation as a brand, right, around what is your tolerance threshold. Because at a certain point, it's not HR's issue, right? It's the company's issue that you're not getting people to build the talent pool that you actually need.
So practical things that have worked, have either in your own lives at work or seeing it elsewhere, what are kinds of initiatives, programs, actually, like anything that you can share that has worked, or examples of things that have worked in making an impact?
I think the number one thing is listening is so important. So listening to your employees, understanding what they need. In terms of inclusion, we did things like open forums after certain events that were happening outside of the office and in our world. Employees felt like they needed to have those conversations at work because they couldn't focus, and it really does tie to productivity.
Are there some mistakes you've seen? Like, okay, we talked about the things that you should do about, listening, having open forums, et cetera, creating an environment where you get to know the person and make it feel like you're not ticking a box. But what are some of the mistakes you've seen? Like, here's, again, on behalf of Tom, don't do this. What's the don't do list? Here's your, 5 or so. Here's your don't do.
Yeah, don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Sometimes companies get very distracted by, well, this company in our industry is doing that. Why don't we get that? Look inward. I think really be focused on what's going to work for you and think about how you can be the best you can be as a company, and everything else is just noise. And I think what Cathy was also saying around don't expect the people who are the minorities, whatever that means for your particular sector, to carry the water. Don't take them off of the jobs that would actually get them ahead at the levels that you want them to get to by asking them to go do the recruiting for that group or figure out the solution for that talent process. They can be involved, but I think that you have to think about who else are you involving so that the work is shared and the accountability is truly there.
I mean, the way I would say it is don't sleep. Like once you have the talent pool in your company or your business, it's not done. It is about elevating them to the next level. And if you're on the leadership side, then it's about making checks and balances for yourself in your own attitudes. Exposure is the biggest unifier, in my opinion. When you have intimacy with someone that is something other than you, and exposure to what their life is like and who they are, that's when you learn the most, personally and professionally. So I'd say don't sleep on your hires. They're not, once they're in the door, your job isn't done, and on your own sort of your own moral compass, checklist, whatever it is. It's a constant process. Nobody's done.